You're listening to the IMT Show with Mike Sims. Now here is your host.
One of the interesting things in my journey in writing is you meet a lot of people that they always say, I've always wanted to write a book. And it always surprises me that people I consider extremely successful in every regard and are just terrified about writing books. And I tell them that it's like, hiking, to a mountain, and you just start walking. You don't worry about the distance, because that's what you're looking at, is that distance. How do I get from there to there, here to there? Just start walking. Just start writing. Don't worry about it being perfect. Don't worry about it, the grammar, spelling, any of that stuff, because that's all going to be edited later. It's all going to be worked on. And then it's you can't worry about it. You just gotta do it. I mean, I'm not formally educated in writing. I'm sure my editors have dreamed about taking me behind the shed at times. So it's you can't worry about that stuff. You just write. Be creative. For me, it's short stories pop in my head and I jot them down in about 10 or 15 minutes. And then I might make them into a novel later, maybe not, depending on if I think it's worthy of one or not. And when I do, I let it brew in my head, the characters and the scenes and the general plot and everything. And when I actually get into the mode and time to write down, I put my headset on and listen to music, and it plays like a movie for me. And I'm just dictating. I really don't even know exactly what the characters are going to say every time. It sometimes goes a little differently than you expect. It's because it's playing out naturally and with continuity. And that's how I write. It's I just let the imagination run it.
Her journey takes her places few live through, but her character is powerful and persevering. To herself, she is only Vicky, but to many others, a powerful force. Vicky.
I put my headset on and listen to music, and it plays like a movie for me. And I'm just dictating. I really don't even know exactly what the characters are going to say every time. It sometimes goes a little differently than you expect. It's because it's playing out naturally and with continuity. And that's how I write. It's I just let the imagination run it. And eventually it pulls into a book, and then I have to go in and clean it up and have it make more sense, because you're having to you can't make it like a history book where it's explaining every little thing in detail. You have to leave certain things for the reader's imagination, so that each reader has their own perception and sees it the way they want to see it. But to me, it flows pretty well. It flows pretty easily. It's just you just got to get into the bubbling point where everything is ready to go. It's ready to be told. But for some people, it's very, very hard, especially if they're in a very technical like mindset. It's very hard for them to sit down and be imaginative and convey that into a story. But I've been fortunate in that I've written short stories, a lot of them, for a long time. And that's when I got into, I brought one of my short stories out because it's one of my favorites, and it's one of my favorites with friends. It was called Southern Cross, and it's kind of the name is it's not just the constellation Southern Cross, which is the pinnacle kind of character in the book, but it's a it's a double entendre on what's happening. The story is about a boy in a poor Mexican village. His name is Miguel, and he has a single dad raising him. He loves astronomy. His uncle works in the city and keeps bringing him astronomy books and even a telescope and so forth, and encouraging him to be what he wants to be. His dad wants him to, be a normal rancher, just like him. But Miguel keeps spending his night staring at the stars. And one night, he realizes they're all wrong. The stars are not where they should be. And so he's having to convince his village that they're not in Mexico anymore. They're somewhere else. So, of course, they don't believe him because they look at the sky, night sky, and it just, all they see is stars. They don't see patterns. Everything looks and appears the same to them. So how can Miguel be right? Well, this takes Miguel on a big adventure because he's got to convince his people the truth of it and then figure out how they got there, why. And that's the basis of the story. And like I say, I cross-pollinated Vicky a little bit in it at the very end. But it's a all age appropriate story and book, kind of Disney-like in a way. It would make a good. I've been told it'd make a good movie. It's definitely one of my favorite stories that of all my short stories. But we'll see what happens with it, and it's been translated in Spanish and in other languages, and I've been very fortunate that I had people that came to me and told me that they grew up in Mexico in a small village, and it took them back, and even the food that they ate was what they were eating, was what Miguel was eating in the book and what it was like for him. So you're kind of, as a writer, like, not having that experience, and just analyzing and studying what you can, getting it right. And even though it's a purely science fictional book, there's a fair amount of calculation and science to it as well, because of course you're going to get people that are going to say, well, how can that, be, and how can this, that, they punch holes in it, even though it's just a fictional story. So I had to make it, somewhat believable and plausible in that respect. But I hope that those that read it really enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it.
It is a sermon lived by few and known by many. Yet for the villagers, it is hard but rewarding. The rhythm of a good life plays music that grows the soul in ways not understood. Only those that are lucky enough to afford such a life can reap the benefits of the quiet song. A song that sings out enough that everyone knows it is there. This is their life and their story.
One of the things that that always one of the issues in publishing is that there's a lot to it. There's especially when you're having to do everything yourself. As before, when I was with Tate, there were teams of people doing everything. And so you're not just writing the story, taking the time to write the story, and then taking the criticisms from beta readers and incorporating their suggestions, re-editing it, rewriting it, and then taking the editor's suggestions and doing that, polishing the book down to where it's palatable for even the most critical readers, without knowing that you're always going to have mistakes and you're always going to have issues with your books, whether it's narrative continuity or otherwise. All books do. Even all classic books have issues. There was even an article about Robin Crusoe that, how could he have swam out there to put things in his pockets when, and previously he said before he jumped in the water, he took all his clothes off. So yeah, writers make mistakes, and they, and a lot of books do have mistakes. And your hope that your story is compelling enough that people will forgive you of it and overlook it when it happens, and it will. So it's but you try to do the best you can with your editing and going through the processes of other people reading and looking at it and telling you what you need to improve on or change and so forth. So it's quite a process, but you also know that you never, like the old saying is that you never finish a book, you only abandon it. you get to a point where it's good enough. It's ready to go. And then you have to go into the laying it out, lay out the pages to where it looks right, the margins are right, the font's right, it looks good for print, and then you have to do it for ebook, which is a whole nother ball game. And then you have to take in consideration, is it going to translate well into other languages if you're going to do it in other languages? This is why I've had international editors oftentimes will work on my books, because they kind of take out the Americanisms that I don't think about when I write, that they definitely pick up on and say, and ask me, what does this mean? And why did you say it this way? I've even had some of my books, when they were translated in different languages, they would, the translators would actually put footnote markers and explain what I'm talking about because of the Americanisms in it. So it's there's a lot of things to consider and a lot of work that has to be done in putting a book together. And then you have to get to the graphic art, and whether you pay for a cover or you design a cover. With Southern Cross, I actually hired a service to do it for me, and I couldn't quite get the concept of what I wanted. I wanted a little boy sitting on a rock, staring at the Southern Cross, and this is it would his village below in the valley, and they couldn't quite get it right. And I finally, I gave up on them, went and bought the artwork, the rights to the artwork I needed. And actually the village was a picture of a port with docking lights. So, but it was so small in the picture that it looks like a little village in the desert. And I put it all together and came up with a cover that fit the feeling that I was trying to convey about the book. So it's a lot of work to put them together. It's a tremendous amount of work and effort, and to get it right. So it's if you're it's a lot of learning if you're going to do it on your own. Fortunately, with like Amazon and some of these places now, they have wizards that can step you through a lot of it and help you do basic stuff to put it out there quickly and efficiently. Of course, editing is something you'll have to do. You have to hire somebody to do, or use some of the online tools to do, which are about half effective. But you really need a human to really read it and look at it and determine what it needs, because they can think through the process and give you an insight that the online tools can't.
Hello, Mike. This is Eddie Deason. Okay, I want to talk to you first of all about Grease. Grease was my very first movie. It was like people say, what was it like working in Grease? Grease was like going to a party, the greatest party of your life. Remember the greatest party you ever had in your life? Grease was like that. It was like a 2-month party, and it didn't end. Well, it did end after 2 months, but it was the greatest party of my life that lasted for 2 months. That's kind of how it was. I loved everybody in the cast. I loved John. John would call me Buddy. He'd come over and shake my hand every day. How are you, Buddy? He was like the biggest star in the world. It was my first film. I was a total unknown, and John would come over. How are you, Buddy? Good to see you, Buddy. He'd always shake my hand. The first scene where I get there, the T-Birds, the T-Birds are there and they mess up my hair and kind of hassle me around. And John, after every take, John would come over. Are you okay, Buddy? Are you all right, Buddy? They'd mess me up. Cut. The director says, John would go, are you okay, Buddy? And he'd always make sure I was okay. Anyway, the last day of Grease, we're doing the carnival scene, and the director, Randall Kleiser, and the producer, Alan Carr, was there. And they said, Eddie, we were at the carnival, and he said, Eddie, will you ride on this spin-around machine, this whirling, twirling machine? I go, no, I get motion sick, please. They go, come on, Eddie, will you do it? So I was a trooper, so I did it. So I spun around on the machine. Now, if you look at Grease, you'll see the carnival scene. You'll see a little blur there for about 1 second in the twirling machine. That blur is me. Anyway, I'm walking off the field after they filmed the scene. I threw up in the middle of the field. It was my ignominious last day of Grease. I threw up in the middle of the carnival field. I went to my dressing room and I collapsed. That was my last day of shooting in Grease. I remember Jeff Conaway tried to get me laid. He tried to get a hooker for me and try to get me laid. I was real scared, but it never happened. Unfortunately for the girl, she didn't get the experience having sex with me, so she really lost something there. Anyway, 1941 was great. I got to work with Steven Spielberg, who I loved. Again, I'll give you another throw-up story. I was on the Ferris wheel, in 1941 I spent the movie on a Ferris wheel. Murray and I are there with my ventriloquist dummy. So Steven's whipping us around on the Ferris wheel a real lot one day, and I'm getting whipped around. I started to get motion sick, so I get down. Steven takes me down. He says, go lay in my dressing room. So I go lay in the dressing room. I'm on Steven Spielberg's cot in his dressing room, feeling nauseous. So I got on my hands and knees. I felt real nauseous, and I crawled in the bathroom, and I threw up. Then I realized I just threw up in Steven Spielberg's toilet. It was an honor. It was one of the highlights of my career. I got to throw up in Spielberg's toilet. Steven was a great day. Steven was a great guy, I'm sorry. One day I'm on the set, okay? Steven turns to me, he goes, Eddie, you want to have lunch with us? Okay, sure, I'll have lunch with Steven Spielberg. So I go to the commissary with Steven. It's Steven Spielberg, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and me. I'm having lunch with these guys. I'm like Jackie Gleason, Ralph Cramden. Humming. I'm there. I didn't say a word the whole hour. We have lunch together for an hour. I didn't say one word the whole hour. So I sat there like a dummy. Finally, I realized I didn't have any money to pay for my lunch. Luckily, Steven picked up the tab. John Belushi was a wonderful guy. He was a great guy. I remember that. And Dan Aykroyd was a great guy. And, of course, working for Steven was an honor. Anyway, I wanted to congratulate you about your Vicky books and about Southern Cross. That's very cool, very well done, Mike. And Mike, I thought in 1941 writing it, Ventriloquist for Dummies. Well, I don't know who should read it. You or the dummy. Maybe have the dummy read it because you're a very nice guy and you're not really a dummy. I wanted to say hi to you, Mike, and this is the video for you. And I hope you have a great weekend, okay? Take care and have a great autumn and a great holiday season. Okay, take care, Mike. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the IMT show with Mike Sims. The views expressed by guests are their own and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The IMT show is an opinion show and not to be taken as serious personal, legal, tax or financial advice. It is meant as entertainment only. IMT show, Mazarov for Mike Sims is not responsible for ad content. For more information on show schedules and content visit www.mazarov.net/IMT.